The stage is set for transformation. The characters have crossed emotional thresholds. The story promises resolution but respects the complexity of their journey. The audience can expect growth, choices, and maybe even risk. The final part will reveal whether extra credit truly meant extra everything, extra love, extra courage, and the chance for something real. If you'd like, I can continue with the final part, or help with a script or social media adaptation. Just say the word. You said, "Explain part 4 in 1200 words," ChatGPT said. Certainly. Here's a detailed, emotionally rich explanation of part 4 of Extra Credit Meant Extra Everything, expanded to approximately 1200 words. This part brings resolution, emotional climax, and gentle maturity to the story, balancing hope, honesty, and the delicate nature of their connection. Part 4 Expanded Explanation. Extra credit, extra everything. The heart's final lesson. The quiet storm that had built between Emily Carter and Dr. Weston Hayes reached a delicate turning point in the final chapter of their story. It was a moment both had feared and hoped for. A crossing from unspoken tension into honest truth, where the risk of heartbreak mingled with the possibility of something rare and real. Facing reality. The choice between heart and duty after weeks of exchanging quiet glances, subtle touches, and half words. Emily and Weston finally found themselves at a crossroads. Emily's writing had grown stronger, deeper. Her extra credit assignment wasn't just a school task anymore. It was a lifeline, a window into her soul. She'd bared her hopes, fears, and dreams on the page, allowing Weston to see her not just as a student, but as a woman yearning for connection and understanding. Weston, too, had confronted his feelings, the professional boundaries he swore by, the ethical lines he couldn't cross lightly. But what made this moment so poignant was their shared vulnerability. Both of them knew that their connection had become something more complicated than simple admiration or academic support. The question was, what now? A moment of truth won. Late afternoon, after a class discussion on forgiveness and second chances, Emily stayed behind to speak with Weston. The classroom was quiet, sunlight slanting through the windows, casting long shadows. Emily's voice was soft but steady. "I'm tired of pretending I don't feel this," she said. "I'm tired of the silence between us." Weston looked at her, conflicted but honest. "I feel it too," he admitted, "but I'm scared. I'm scared of what this could mean. For you, for me, for everything." They both knew the risks. Rumors, judgment, professional consequences, and the personal heartbreak if things didn't work out. But in that moment, those fears seemed to fade under the weight of truth. A gentle embrace of connection. They talked for a long time, sharing their fears and hopes. Neither rushed the other. The honesty between them was fragile, yet it opened a space where healing could begin. Emily revealed how lonely she had felt, balancing family obligations and dreams with little support. Weston confessed his own loneliness, a life devoted to his career, but missing the warmth of a real connection. Their hands touched this time not by accident but by choice, and the warmth of that contact was a promise of something gentle and new. They didn't leap into a whirlwind romance. Instead, they chose to move forward carefully, respecting each other's boundaries while exploring their feelings honestly. The power of healing through love. Emily's extra credit assignment had been more than just a task. It had become a bridge between two lonely hearts. Weston encouraged her to keep writing, to keep telling her story. He saw in her the strength to overcome, the spark that had been hidden beneath exhaustion and fear. For Emily, Weston became more than a teacher. He became a safe harbor, a person who believed in her when she struggled to believe in herself. Their relationship was a quiet rebellion against loneliness, a testament to the healing power of love born from understanding and respect. The growing tension, attraction and boundaries over the next few weeks. The subtle dance between Emily and Weston became more complex. There were stolen glances across the classroom. The way their eyes met just a little too long. Emily found herself lingering after class, pretending to organize her notebook when really she was hoping to catch Weston's attention. Weston, for his part, kept professional distance but struggled internally. He knew the rules. He respected boundaries. But the attraction was undeniable. It wasn't physical in a loud, obvious way. It was quieter, an emotional pull that made him more aware of her presence than anyone else's. One rainy evening, Emily stayed late to finish an assignment in the now empty classroom. Weston was still there, grading essays under the soft light of his desk lamp. The room was filled with the scent of old books and faint coffee. Emily gathered her things, ready to leave into the damp Seattle night. Weston hesitated. "Do you want a ride?" he asked softly. Emily looked at him, caught off guard. "I should be fine," she said, but her voice wavered. He stepped closer, concern etched in his expression. "It's getting worse out there," he insisted. She wanted to say yes, but years of self-reliance and fear held her back. "I think I should go," she whispered. Weston nodded slowly, but neither moved toward the door. Their fingers brushed lightly, almost accidentally, but the contact sent a spark neither could ignore. His voice dropped to a near whisper. "I think about you more than I should." Her breath caught. "I know," she admitted. And in that moment, the rules between them felt fragile, like a thin thread stretched too tight. Emotional and dramatic themes in Part 2. This part of the story digs deeper into the emotional core of both characters, Emily's vulnerability and strength. She bravely exposes her heart in her writing, showing that vulnerability can be a form of strength. Weston's compassion and conflict. He's torn between his professional role and his genuine feelings, creating a mature, respectful tension. The power of honest storytelling. Emily's writing becomes a bridge between them, a way to connect. Beyond surface roles, longing and restraint, their growing attraction is tender and slow-burning, emphasizing emotional intimacy over physical action. Mutual recognition. Both characters see parts of themselves in each other. The loneliness, the dreams, the need to be understood. Why this middle section works: building emotional connection. The story evolves naturally from teacher and student to two people who deeply affect each other's lives. Maintaining respect and boundaries. The romantic tension is mature and gentle, perfect for an adult but non-explicit tone. Increasing stakes. The unspoken feelings create suspense. Will they act on this connection or stay apart? Relatability. Many readers will recognize the feelings of longing, hesitation, and the struggle to balance desire with responsibility. Narrative momentum. The story hints at changes coming but holds back just enough to keep the audience invested. The weeks following Emily Carter's late-night confession and Weston Hayes' quiet admission were marked by a delicate, unspoken tension, an invisible thread weaving between them, pulling and teasing with every glance, every word left unfinished. Emily found herself thinking about Weston more often than she expected, her mind replaying small moments, the way he smiled when she shared a witty comment, the way his eyes softened when she spoke about her writing. The classroom, once just a place for lectures and assignments, began to feel charged with something deeper, a mix of anticipation, longing, and restraint. Weston, too, struggled beneath the surface. He was a man trained to keep professionalism as a shield, but the boundaries between teacher and student blurred like watercolor paint, blending softly across paper. Every interaction with Emily became a test of self-control. He questioned himself constantly. Was this feeling appropriate? Was it ethical? Was it fair to her? To himself? The unfolding of small moments in class. Their connection deepened through subtle, meaningful moments. One afternoon, after a heated discussion about a novel's themes of sacrifice and love, Emily lingered by the classroom door, pretending to organize her notes. Weston noticed. His eyes met hers and held, just long enough to send a thrill through both of them. Emily's heart fluttered. Was it just the words they had just discussed? Or was there something more between them? Weston, for his part, felt the magnetic pull of her presence like a current running beneath the surface of his calm exterior. He reminded himself that no matter how strong the attraction, he had to protect her and his own integrity. Rain and the classrooms. Quiet intimacy. One rainy evening added a turning point. Emily was still in the classroom after everyone else had left, working on an extra writing assignment. The rain pattered steadily against the windows, and the soft glow of Weston's desk lamp cast warm shadows across the room. The usual sterile atmosphere of the university transformed into something intimate and personal. Weston was there, grading papers quietly, but he kept glancing over at Emily. There was something about her focus, the way her brow furrowed slightly in concentration, that made his chest tighten with both admiration and longing. When Emily gathered her things to leave, Weston hesitated. "Are you okay to get home?" he asked softly. Emily glanced out the window, then back at him. "I think so," she said, but her voice was fragile, tired. "It's raining harder now," he pressed gently. The tension hung between them like thick fog. Weston offered, "I can drive you." Emily wanted to say yes. Part of her was relieved to have a way out of the storm. But years of independence, self-doubt, and the invisible walls she'd built made her hesitate. "I think I should go," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Weston nodded slowly, but neither moved. Their proximity was charged, a delicate balance of restraint and desire. The moment of confession. Hearts on the edge. Then the moment came. Their fingers brushed light, accidental but electric. Neither pulled away immediately. Weston's voice dropped to a near whisper. "I think about you more than I should." Emily's breath caught. Her heart pounded in her chest. "I know," she admitted, eyes meeting his in the dim light. In that silence, everything changed. No words needed to be spoken. They both knew they had crossed a line, not with actions, but with feelings. The complexity of their emotions. What made this moment so powerful wasn't the physical touch, but the vulnerability underneath. Emily felt exposed, but safe. Weston felt conflicted, but hopeful. Their connection wasn't about instant gratification. It was about something deeper, an emotional awakening neither of them had expected but both quietly longed for. They were two souls seeking understanding and kindness in a world that often demanded strength and silence. Emotional themes in part 3. Longing and restraint. This part centers on the tension between desire and discipline. Both characters feel pulled toward each other but hold back out of respect and fear. Vulnerability and courage. The characters expose their emotions carefully, with a mix of hesitation and bravery. Boundaries and ethical dilemmas. Weston wrestles with his role as a professor and the appropriate limits, making the story mature and emotionally realistic. Slow-burning romance. Their connection grows steadily, emphasizing emotional intimacy over physical action, hope and uncertainty. The scene ends with an unspoken promise and a question mark. What will happen next? Why this part deepens the story. The third section is where the emotional stakes climb higher. Readers feel the intensity, building but appreciate the respectful pacing. The characters become more multidimensional, showing fears and desires in equal measure. The moments are everyday and realistic, no dramatic declarations. Just shared silences, gentle touches, and honest confessions. The setting, a quiet classroom. A rainy night adds atmosphere and symbolism. Rain often represents renewal or emotional cleansing, fitting for the quiet storm between them. The reader's questions after part 3. The gentle cliffhanger leaves the audience wondering. Will Emily and Weston act on their feelings? Or will they keep their distance? How will they handle the tension between professional boundaries and personal attraction? What consequences might their relationship bring, both emotionally and practically? Can they find a way to be honest with each other and with themselves? These questions keep the audience emotionally engaged and eager for the resolution. Character, depth. Why we care about them. Emily is someone many can relate to, the hard-working young woman balancing dreams and responsibility, longing to be seen and loved without judgment. Weston is a man of principles, kind but conflicted, who values integrity but cannot deny the emotional truth between them. Their internal struggles mirror real-life complexities in love, making the story feel authentic and heartfelt. Emily Carter sat in the back corner of the University of Washington's lecture hall, clutching her notebook tightly. She wasn't usually this nervous. In fact, Emily prided herself on being organized, responsible, and above all, strong. But today, she felt all those traits slipping through her fingers like sand. The soft hum of the classroom filled the air as Dr. Weston Hayes stood at the front, speaking passionately about the power of storytelling. His voice was calm but full of conviction. He had a way of making even the most complicated ideas sound simple and somehow inspiring. Emily admired that Weston was young for a professor, only a few years older than the students he taught. He had dark hair that always seemed slightly tousled, and his eyes held a kind of quiet intensity that made students want to listen closer. More than once, Emily had caught herself staring at him, not out of distraction, but because his passion reminded her why she loved writing so much. But today, despite her admiration, Emily's thoughts were far away, tangled in worries and exhaustion. She had missed 2 classes in a row. She had turned in her last assignment late, and it showed. In red ink, Dr. Hayes had written a note on the margin. "Come see me after class." Emily's stomach tightened every time she saw that note. She wasn't sure if it meant she was failing or just needed extra help, but she was afraid to find out. She wanted to be the student who never missed deadlines, the one who made her professor proud. Instead, she was struggling to keep up. Life had become overwhelming lately. Her mom had been in the hospital after a sudden surgery. Emily had taken on extra shifts at the diner to cover the bills. And on top of that, she was raising her younger brother, Jake, who was only 10 but suddenly needed more attention than ever. Homework, meals, bedtime stories, it all fell on Emily's shoulders. The creative writing course was her escape, the one place she felt alive and understood. But even that was slipping away. As the last student left the room, Emily gathered her courage and approached Dr. Hayes's desk. Her heart beat so loudly she thought he might hear it. "Dr. Hayes," she said softly. He looked up from a stack of papers, surprised but not unkind. "I saw your note. I wanted to talk," she continued, voice cracking just a little. He nodded, signaling her to sit across from him. For a moment, neither spoke. The quiet between them was heavy but not uncomfortable. Finally, Emily took a deep breath. "I'm sorry," she said. "I know I'm behind. I have a lot going on. Mum's in the hospital. I'm working more to help pay the bills. I'm trying to keep up with everything, but..." Her voice faltered, and she looked down at her hands. She felt small, fragile. Weston didn't interrupt. He just listened. When she finished, she felt tears prick her eyes but held them back. She didn't want to seem weak. Then, to her surprise, Dr. Hayes reached out and gave a small, reassuring smile. "Emily," he said gently, "thank you for telling me. I don't want to fail you, but I need to understand how to help." Emily blinked, unsure if she had heard him right. Professors rarely cared about students' lives beyond grades. He leaned back in his chair and folded his hands. "How about this?" he said. "I'll give you some extra credit. Not just an extra essay, but something different." Emily frowned, curious despite herself. "Tell me your story. Write about you, not just the assignments I give. Raw, honest, whatever you need to say. It might help you, and it'll help me understand where you're coming from." Emily looked up, caught off guard by his kindness. "Why would you do that?" she asked. Weston's eyes softened. "Because sometimes extra credit means extra. Everything. Not just points on a paper. It means extra time, extra patience, extra understanding." For the first time in weeks, Emily felt a small flicker of hope. She nodded slowly. "Okay," she whispered. That night, Emily sat at her small desk in her cramped apartment, pen in hand. The assignment wasn't about perfect grammar or neat paragraphs. It was about her fears, her hopes, the burden she carried silently. The pages began to fill with her truth. She wrote about late nights working at the diner, about watching over Jake and trying not to break down. She wrote about her dreams of becoming a writer, of telling stories that mattered. She wrote about feeling invisible in a world that demanded so much but gave so little back. With every word, she felt lighter. And somewhere, far away, a professor was waiting to read not just her writing, but her heart. Emotional and relatable elements in Part 1. Emily's story is one many can relate to: balancing responsibilities, feeling overwhelmed, and longing for someone to truly see and understand her. She represents the young adult caught between obligations and dreams, between exhaustion and hope. Weston is not just a teacher, but a compassionate human being who recognizes that education is more than grades. His invitation to write from the heart signals a break from the traditional teacher-student distance, offering a space for emotional honesty and connection. The tension in this part comes from Emily's fear of failing, her embarrassment in revealing, vulnerability, and the unspoken attraction growing between her and Weston. The reader senses something tender and important about to unfold, but it is wrapped in a gentle, respectful way. After that first difficult meeting with Dr. Weston Hayes, Emily Carter felt a strange mix of relief and pressure. For the first time, someone in authority, not just her family or boss, had shown real concern for her situation. But the task he gave her felt both daunting and oddly intimate. Write her story. Not the polished essays she was used to, but something raw, honest, and personal. Emily's small apartment in Seattle had a modest wooden desk, barely enough space for her battered laptop and a pile of notebooks. It was late when she sat down there, the world outside quiet, except for the distant hum of traffic and the occasional bark of a dog. She took a deep breath and opened a blank document. At first, the words came slowly. How do you put a lifetime of exhaustion and hope into a few pages? How do you explain being strong when you feel so weak? She stared at the blinking cursor, then remembered something Weston said. Write what you need to say, not what you think I want to read. That thought was freeing. Emily began with the smallest moments, the way her brother's laughter made her forget her worries for just a minute, the smell of coffee brewing at dawn before her shifts, the hospital waiting rooms filled with muffled cries and stale air. She wrote about her mother's smile, still bright but faint since the surgery. She wrote about her dreams of becoming a writer, a dream buried beneath responsibilities but never fully forgotten. The more she wrote, the more her story unfolded in layers. It wasn't just about hardship. It was about resilience. About love in its messy, imperfect forms. About wanting to be seen. Emily's handwriting became messy, rushed even, as the emotions poured out. Some pages were filled with hope. Others with quiet heartbreak. She didn't censor herself. This was her truth. Weston's reaction. Feeling. Every word. Meanwhile, on the other side of campus, Weston Hayes waited. He wasn't just a professor grading papers. He was a man who found himself unexpectedly invested in one student's story. When Emily left the essay on his desk the next class, Weston barely glanced at the other assignments. His curiosity and something deeper pulled him toward her work. He took it home, careful not to let anyone see. He read her words in the soft glow of his bedside lamp, the city lights twinkling through his apartment window. Every sentence cut deeper than he expected. Emily's writing wasn't just skillful. It was honest in a way that shook him. She wrote about the quiet desperation of balancing so many roles, about loneliness hidden behind a brave face, about the dreams she carried even when the world seemed to push them away. Weston felt a mix of admiration and protectiveness. He admired her strength, but also felt the ache of her vulnerability. He wanted to reach through the pages and tell her she wasn't alone. But he couldn't. Not yet. He closed the essay slowly, his fingers trembling just a little. There was a line. He knew he couldn't cross the line between professor and student, but in his heart, something else had shifted. For the first time, this wasn't just about teaching. The unspoken connection the next class. Weston was different. More attentive when Emily spoke, more patient when she stumbled. She noticed it too, those subtle changes. One afternoon, after a particularly animated discussion about a famous novel, Weston pulled Emily aside. His voice was quiet, almost hesitant. "Can I be honest with you?" he asked. Emily's heart jumped. There was something serious in his tone she hadn't heard before. "You already have," she whispered, remembering her own honesty in the essay. He smiled faintly but looked away. "Your writing ... It moved me, more than I expected. It's rare to read something so true." Emily felt her cheeks flush, a mixture of embarrassment and warmth. "I'm glad you shared it," he continued. "That sometimes truth can be hard to hold. I want to make sure you're okay." There was a pause, heavy with meaning. Emily didn't want to admit how much she needed someone to see her. Not just her struggles, but the person she was beneath. But Weston's kindness gave her courage. "I'm trying," she said simply. They stood there for a moment longer. Words left unspoken between them. The growing tension. Attraction and boundaries over the next few weeks. The subtle dance between Emily and Weston became more complex. There were stolen glances across the classroom. The way their eyes met just a little too long. Emily found herself lingering after class, pretending to organize her notebook when really she was